All right, scholars. So this is the next part of the study guide. It is unit conversion. And to solve it, we use ratio reasoning. You see how it's all connected. So let's just read this part. I know I will convert units, and you know what converting is. Like converting is changing one unit to the next, right? So as we know, like sometimes you may have fabric, right? And the fabric is, sold by feet, right? However, to make a skirt, you need a certain amount of inches, right? But if you could convert how much feet it is to inches, then you can get the right measurement to help you like cut out the right amount for inches and not be confused or waste money or like get an amount that's too small. So we convert units to help us understand that. Also, there's metric systems such as like the imperial system is what we use here in America, and I believe it's also used in Liberia, but don't quote me. You could double check it. But and then we have the metric system, which is used everywhere else in the world, right? So metric system would be like grams, kilograms, right? However, in the imperial system, we use something known as pounds and tons, right? Um, so yeah, so that's just like a small, gist of that, right? So I know I will convert units of measurements correctly when I identify the ratio or the unit rate that is needed for the conversion problem, multiply or divide by the unit rate, compare and order measurements by converting them into the same unit. So we know like a unit of length that you have foot. Foot is also 1 foot is like a ruler, right? Which is 12 inches. A yard is like three rulers or 36 inches. See, 3 feet is three rulers, which is 3 yards, which is 36 inches. 1 mile is 5,280 feet, and 1 mile is 1,760 yards. Okay, which probably means that you divided this by three because there are 3 feet per yard. A pound is about 16 ounces. A ton is about 2,000 pounds. A minute is 60 seconds. An hour is 60 minutes. A day is 24 hours. A week is 7 days. A year is 12 months. A year is 365 days. A leap year is 366 days. You should know this. Like if you don't know this yet, you need to study this. Your parents need to talk to you about this every single day because it's very important. Okay? And units are measured in different things. Like unit of length is like how long or short something is. Unit of weight is like how heavy or light something is. Unit of time is like how much time it takes. Capacity is like volume, like how much of something fills, right? Like this cup of water is volume because it's something filling into that. So you also have to have that like knowledge. So let's get into some work. So it's already starting off. There are 4 cups in a quart. That's a conversion. That's a conversion. 4 cups in a quart. A recipe for lemonade calls for 2½ quarts. How many cups of water should you use? So here's what we know. We know that there are 4 cups in quart. We also know that a recipe needs 2½ quarts. Okay, we're trying to find how many cups. Okay, so I can use a ratio table. In my ratio table, I know I'm comparing cups to quarts. And always, always, always start with the conversion. We know that there are 4 cups in 1 quart. What information is given? We know that this recipe has 2½ quarts. You understand that? We got to figure out how many cups is 2½ quarts. Well, to get from 1 to 2½ is to multiply by 2½ Thus, what you do on one side, do on the other side, multiply by 2½ 2 and 1/2 is going to be multiplied by 4. We could turn this into an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 1, because in order to turn into an improper fraction, for every half, like every 2 groups, there's 1 whole. So since there are 2 wholes, that's 4 plus 1, that's 5 halves. So we have 5 halves times 4, and every whole number is over 1, which would be 20 over 2, which would be 10. Do you see what I just did? Also, we also know that even looking here, to get from cups to quarts, you divide by 4. To get from quarts to cups, you multiply by 2.5. 2.5, you multiply by 4, right? 2.5 times 4. You can also look at that. 2.5 times 4 is 10, because 25 times 4 is 100. Now here's more information. You measure out 15 cups. How many quarts? So before, you was trying to figure out how many cups. Now you're figuring out how many quarts. So cups, quarts. What do you know? We know our conversion. 4 cups is 1 quart, right? But now it says we have 15 cups, right? How many quarts? We don't even have to do all of this, because we know to get from 4 to 1, you divide by 4. So just divide 15 by 4. 4, 8, 12. That looks like an improper fraction. 3, 3, 3 and 3/4. You see what I just did? I divided 15 divided by 4. As you can see, we find equivalent ratios going across, but we also find it going up and down. Since there is no multiplicative between 4 and 15, let's figure out what else we have a multiplicative relationship of. There's a multiplicative relationship between 4 and 1. To get from 4 to 1, you divide by 4, which means for every cup, to determine how many quarts, you just divide your cups by 4. And 15 divided by 4, this is an improper fraction. That means for every 4, it's 1 whole. So 4, 8, 12, which is 3 wholes, but it's not quite 16, because there's 3/4 more. Okay? Let's look at this one. How many ounces are in 6.5 pounds? But Mr. Ray, like, I don't see that. However, well, don't you sure? Because here tells us our conversions. What can you see? What do you see? Ounces and pounds. Oh, for every 1 pound is 16 ounces. Do you see that? I can use my conversion chart to help me solve it. So we know 1 pound equals 16 ounces. And it's saying how many ounces in 1 pound. Well, we're comparing ounces or pounds to pounds. What do we know? We know 16 ounces is 1 pound. And it says we have 6.5 pounds, right? How many ounces? We know to get from 1 to 16, you multiply by 16. So it looks like you have to multiply 6.5 times 16. Here's how I like to do it. Turn this thing into an improper fraction. 12, 13, that's 13 halves times 16 over 1. Now you're just multiplying 13 times 16. You could break that down, because you could do 16 times 10, which is 160. 16 times 3, which is 48. 160 plus 48. I think that's 208. I could be wrong. But let's see. 15 times 13. Look at that. Did you see how I use mental math to solve that? That's because I just decomposed. Like I just multiplied 16 by 10 and then 16 times 3. 16 times 10 is 160. 16 times 3 is 48. 160 plus 48 is 208. So that tells me that in 6½ pounds, right? Let's double check. They're 1 pound for 16 ounces. 6½ pounds is equivalent to 208 ounces. Let's see what you can do here. Let's use this information to help us here. All right. All right, let's read this. A catering business plans for a 3-ounce serving of chicken for each guest. Okay, so 3 ounces for each, which is one guest. Okay, there are 25 people. Okay, if the catering business purchases 4½ pounds, do you see what I'm doing? As I'm reading, I'm just writing it down. Will they have enough? Okay, so it looks like when you see these conversion problems, you want to say like, what's being converted right now? It looks like ounces is being converted to pounds. And we know that 16 ounces is equivalent to 1 pound. Okay. The catering business has 3-ounce serving for each guest. Okay. There are 25 people attending the party. Okay. But they purchased 4½ pounds. So it looks like in order to solve this first you got to figure out like if it's 3 ounces for one guest and there are 25 guests, we need to figure out in total how many ounces, right? Before you can even get to pounds, right? Okay, so we know it's 3 ounces per guest. Do you see how I'm comparing ounces to people? But it's 25 people. So you multiply by 25 and 3 times 25 is 75. So now you know, right? Now we know that there are 75 ounces in total. What we're trying to figure out is 4½ enough for 75 ounces, right? So like is 4½ pounds enough for 75 ounces? Now we got to figure that out. So now we got to go ounces to pounds. We know there's 6 ounces to 1 pound. I mean, for every pound, there's 16 ounces. Here, there's 4½ pounds. Let's see. We know to get from pounds to ounces, we multiply by 16. So 4½ times 16. We can go ahead and convert that into an improper fraction. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9. So we have 9/2 times 16. Every whole number is over 1. Okay. So you remember how I was multiplying before using mental math? Another way to use mental math is 9 is very close to 10. 16 times 10 is 160. However, 160 minus another group of 16, because it's a group, like there's 9 groups of 16, but I did 10 groups of 16, so I have to subtract it by 1 group of 16. So basically it's like 160 minus 16. Let's see. 160 minus 10 is 150. 150 minus 6 is 144. So let's see. Yep. So it's 144 halves. And half of 144, 2 goes into 14 7 times. 72. So what does this mean, right? So we now know that 4.5 pounds is equivalent to 72 ounces. However, for the party, you need 75 ounces. So it's looking like they will not, they will not have enough. But why? Well, 4.5 pounds is equivalent to 75 ounces. No, 72 ounces, excuse me. 72 ounces. If 25 people need 3 ounces, then that is a total of 75 ounces. You have 72 ounces, but need 75 ounces. So thus, they are short 3 ounces. Which also technically means you can really only feed 24 people, right? You can only really feed 24 people. All right, that's it for that.